Kat, do you want to say hi?
Hi.
Filming a book video. Kat's gonna be my assistant. First things first, I made an Instagram account for books. I'm gonna put it in all of the important parts here. But I'm doing the book recommendation tag. I think it was Steph Orr who made it. I don't know if I'm saying her name right, but y'all know who I'm talking about. Kat's really just here to be my personal assistant. It's not because my birthday is tomorrow, but like weeks ago by the time this is out. But anyways, there's like 15 questions and I'm just gonna recommend Kat books and everybody else and share my thoughts on some books.
The book you tell people is your favorite.
This book is the love of my life. Kat is reading it right now. I forced her to take it home with her. I like adore this book. I could talk about it for my entire existence. Anastasia, who is a figure skater and she like wants to like compete and like devote her life to figure skating. Her partner is like totally not a nice guy. His name's Aaron and he like talks about her body and just is not a good partner, but he wants to win, so he just like tries to control her basically. When there's an issue and the hockey team and the figure skating team have to share their rink, then she comes across Nate, who is a hockey player, and he becomes her partner when Aaron can't be her partner anymore for reasons that you'll find out. But he fills in and he is just like the perfect book boy ever. Don't be fooled. This cover is like so sweet and innocent.
It gets crazy.
It's crazy in this book, but it's so good. I love their chemistry. I did a reading vlog with this book. I'll have it up on the screen so you can go watch it and like see my thoughts while I was reading it. There's a whole thing with like trust and everything, and he like will not back down. Like he wants to prove himself to her, and he's just the perfect dream boyfriend, perfect book guy. Plus he plays hockey, and I'm just like 10 out of 10 right there.
Guilty pleasure book.
I don't have it with me. A lot of people on TikTok slander this book and I will not let it happen. I won't stand for that. This book is in Nashville currently. I didn't bring it back with me, but I've read it a bunch of times and it's Punk 57. I'm just leaving like some space for people to like yell at me through the screen. Here's the thing, a lot of people that are hating on it and saying that it's like, oh, like this is so Wattpad-esque, like this is so like meh. What do you think I was reading in middle school? Like I was on Wattpad every single day, so I loved it. I ate it up. But that book is about these two kids, Ryan and Mason. So Ryan is the girl, but because he has a name that can be like mistaken as her being a guy, when their schools did pen pals, they set Mason with Ryan because they thought that Ryan was a guy and it was supposed to be like guy to guy, girl to girl communication, but it was set co-ed for them. They started talking and became best friends like through elementary school, middle school. Then something happened in Mason's life. I can't remember, I'm pretty sure Mason is his real name because he uses a fake name when they're like at school together. But something happens in his life, he breaks contact with her. They break contact and then he ends up at her school and she doesn't know that it's him, but he knows that it's her. He's kind of giving her a hard time. It's kind of enemies to lovers with like the new version of him at that school, but he knows who she is. So it's enemies to lovers, but also kind of friends to lovers. Friends to enemies to lovers, kind of. I just like love it so much. If you're not into smut, don't read it because it's like, that book is like 50 Shades of Grey for like high schoolers. It's crazy. I don't care. Everybody can hate on it. More for me, I do not care.
Book everyone loved, but you didn't.
People are gonna get so mad at me for this one. A Good Girl's Guide to Murder by Holly Jackson. I don't know. I don't like know really any other books by this author, so I can't say like I dislike any of her other books. But I just hated this so much. I read it during a reading vlog and really like tried not to be mean. It's a review, so if it means I'm gonna have to like be a little hard on some of it. Pip is the main girl. Pip is trying to like analyze this case for her senior project, which I think is ridiculous. So basically on the back it says pretty and popular high school senior Andy Bell was murdered by her boyfriend who then killed himself, and 5 years later Pip sees how the tragedy still haunts her town. So it's this big thing that happened in her town and she's just doing it as a school project, and like people died, like multiple people tragically, and like death is tragic anyway. So the fact that she's just interviewing people for this school project I think is ridiculous and just so like not really okay. And there's just all this stuff, like very heavy like trigger warnings in this book, and she's just like doing it for a school project. I think that's very like insensitive to all of the families that she's interviewing, to just be like, by the way, sorry about your loss, but like, can you answer some questions for my school project? I did not like this book. I see why people did. I don't know, like, I understand. I've heard of people that really liked it. I've talked to people that really liked it, but for me, it's just like a hard pass. And on the back, it also says, this is the story of an investigation turned obsession. So she's like obsessing over it. Sorry, not sorry. I don't, whatever. The next question is a book you read the fastest. I'm a really fast reader anyway, and if I like a book, I'll get through it really fast, but I didn't want to repeat the same books all the time, and I also didn't want to pick books that like I didn't really remember the plot of because it was a while ago that I read them. So I picked The Honeymooners by Christina Lauren. I love this book, but yeah, The Honeymooners, I read this 2 summers ago at the beach, which was like perfect setting for it, and it is like pretty hefty, but there's also a lot of pages that are just full of like text conversations. I'm trying to find an example. Like, a lot of the pages just look like that. But it's about this girl, Olive, whose twin sister goes and gets married, and at the wedding, Olive is the maid of honor, and you can come in. Sorry, I'm gonna move all that out of the way. I just needed to thank you. You're welcome. Olive's the maid of honor, and at the wedding, the bride and groom get food poisoning and can't go on their trip to Hawaii for their honeymoon. So instead of canceling the trip and like getting some money back, they say, okay, the bridesmaid, or instead they decide to send the maid of honor and the best groomsman. Is that what his name is? What the fuck?
The best man.
The best groom. Well, it's the same thing. Anyways, so instead of canceling the trip, they shut up. You packed yourself a little snack.
I didn't eat breakfast.
Okay, sorry. So much is happening right now. I have no, like, I don't know what's happening. Let me start over. So, I can't think of what they're called.
What did you probably think of? The bridesmaids, the groomsmen?
No, the main one. The maid of honor and the best man. Is that what it is?
Yeah.
Okay.
You got it.
I don't know what happened in my brain. So anyway, instead of canceling the trip, the bride and groom send the maid of honor and the best man on the honeymoon trip. So it's called the Unhoneymooners because they're not the couple, but for the sake of all of like the marriage packages that they did, they have to pretend like they're a couple. And I mean, they didn't really have to, but just like for the sake of the experience, they were like, let's sort of fake date to like make it seem like it's special. It says that they're enemies. I wouldn't call them enemies. Would you say?
Did they know each other before?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure. I haven't read it in 2 years, so I don't remember everything, but it says that it's her nemesis, and I don't really think they were that much of enemies.
I think it was like a playful hate.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking when I was picking books out. It's very much of like like they piss each other off because they're like, meh, whatever, you know, but they're not like actually hateful to each other. But then there's all this drama when they come back, and when they come back, they're like very much different feelings for each other. So there's all this drama that comes back with them, and it's really good, really funny. Sorry, I had a little bit of a brain meltdown while I was trying to figure out what the words were there.
A book that deserves more hype.
So a book that deserves more hype is Call It What You Want. I don't know how to say this author's last name, but this is what it is. I read this book when I was like starting to get back into reading a lot. So it was like 2 years ago, and this book is so good, and I never see anybody talk about it. So it's about these 2 kids in high school who both have like scandals that happen to them basically. Rob is the main guy. He lost everything when his dad was caught embezzling funds from half the town, his friends, his status at school, even his family. Although his father's suicide attempt failed, the dad he knew was gone. He basically has to take care of his dad because his dad like can't do anything for himself anymore. And then Megan is the girl, and she is caught, pretty sure she's like cheating on her SATs or something. So it's like this whole thing at school where everybody hates her for that. So they're just 2 very hated kids in town, and then they meet each other and like are trying to help each other through life and their problems and try to be there for each other. But then more stuff happens in their lives, and it's kind of like pulling them apart. But this book is really good.
A book that is becoming a movie/TV show.
Okay, I don't have any. I had Daisy Jones, but I didn't watch the show, so I really have no like input on it. So I picked one that is just a classic movie that I know Kat's gonna back me up on. And it's Perks of Being a Wallflower. And I had this book in like 6th grade, so it's kind of like on its last leg, but I want to take it back with me to Nashville and read it because it's like less than 200 pages, I think, and it's just a really easy read, and I love it. This is truly, I think, the best book that has become a movie or a TV show. Like 1000%. And I can't remember if I watched the movie first and then read this because I was in middle school, so I don't remember, but I just know that I love that movie and I love this book. I feel like everybody knows it and like knows the story, so I'm not gonna sit here and talk about it, but basically I like this book a lot because of the way it's set up, because it is different from the movie, which I think is what makes the movie so good. Have you read the book? So the book is set up like, if you watch the movie, he's narrating to his friend that died, and in the book, it's all the letters that he was writing. So the movie is like him reading out the letters, but this is just all the letters that he's writing. So everyone starts with like, dear friend, and then he tells the story of what happened that day. I love this book. I'm gonna read it again. This book's in like letter format, so it's very easy to read and it's very short, but I love the movie. I truly think that's like the greatest movie that's come from a book.
A book you've reread the most?
Well, I wrote Icebreaker in there because I'm going to read it again. I only read it once. I think the answer is Punk 57, or I have one book over there called Let It Snow, and it's by John Green. I used to read it every winter in middle school because it's like Christmassy. 3 different authors on it, and it's 3 different stories. I'm pretty sure it's 3. I might be wrong. I don't remember it completely. I liked that one a lot and I would read it literally every winter, but I think of recent ones, I think it's Punk 57. I think I've read it like twice, which isn't a lot, but like reading with school and work is a lot, so rereading something is a lot of work too. So if I chose to reread it, that shows how much I like it.
A book from a genre you don't typically read?
My dad got me this book last Christmas. It's The Cafe on the Edge of the World by John Strzelecki. I don't really know how to explain this book. It's like a life lesson kind of book. Really tiny. I don't know if you can see. Very small. It's like the size of my hand. On the back, it says, in a small cafe at a location so remote it stands in the middle of nowhere. It says middle twice. I'm not losing it. It says in the middle of nowhere. John, a man in a hurry, is at a crossroads, intent of only refueling before moving on his road trip. He finds sustenance of a completely different kind. In addition to the specials of the day, the cafe menu lists 3 questions all diners are encouraged to answer, which is, why are you here? Do you fear death? And are you fulfilled? So he's talking to like the servers and stuff about the questions, and he's like really confused, and they're basically just telling him stories of all these different people that have come through. I'm pretty sure I read it in December, but my dad would be so happy to see that I put it in here because he bought this for me and my brother, and on the front it says a story about the meaning of life. And one thing that stuck to me with this was there was one story in here where it was like about this guy who was a fisherman or something, and somebody was like, well, why don't you use your money and get like a yacht, and then you can like ride around on this boat, and you know, everybody will think you're so cool. And he's like, well, I like having like my little beaten up like kayak and fishing out of that. So it's kind of about how people want you to live your life a certain way, and you have to be like, actually I don't want that, even though it's kind of tempting, and like living life the way you choose. So for example, when I bought Taylor Swift tickets, everybody was like, sell your ticket, you'll make so much money off of it. Everybody was like, you could sell that for so much money. And I was like, I'm well aware that I can make bank off this ticket, but I would much rather go to the show and have a good experience. And I told my dad that. He was like, that's why I got you that book. That's why I got that for you. I'm so glad you read it. Like, this book, it seems kind of cheesy, but like it makes you look at things differently, and I wouldn't have picked it up if my dad didn't get it for me. But it just kind of teaches you how to appreciate things and like not really care if somebody is like, you should live your life this way. It's about you being like, this is what I want to do and this is how I'm gonna do it. Nobody else has to understand but you.
A book that deserves all the hype it gets.
Did I do Icebreaker?
No, the fine print.
Oh, okay, that was a library book, so I don't have it. That's another one that people have said, like, it's kind of been hit or miss for them, but I personally really like the fine print. It's the first one in a trilogy. I don't know if they're making more or if it's just the 3. It's the fine print, terms and conditions, and then the final offer. And I really like the fine print. It's about this guy who inherits his family's like amusement park, basically. It's kind of like a spin on Disney, really. I might be kind of maybe lying because I don't have the book to look off of, so I'm just using my memory. He like owns the park and whatever, and this girl's working for them, and nobody really takes her seriously, and she's like pitching all these ideas for the park, and he eventually is like, yeah, that works really well. He's also like at some point, because he likes her, like pretending to be somebody else while he's texting her to get to know her, because it's kind of like workplace enemies where it's not really like they actually hate each other, it's just kind of like tension and work, using a fake name to text her with because she's not really gonna give him the time of day, so he has to work a little bit for her, which I love, which is why I love Nate from Icebreaker. So yeah, I love that one. I don't have it with me. I want to get it though because I love the series and I want to keep reading it, so once I read all of them, then I'll buy them. I don't have it with me currently.
What do you usually recommend when asked to give a recommendation?
It's Icebreaker. I'm not gonna show it again, but it's Icebreaker. It's such an easy read and it's really fun, and something else I really like about it is I love books that have playlists in them, and a lot of them always have Taylor Swift, so I love it.
A book that has your favorite character?
Icebreaker, I just love Nate. He's like so funny, so fun. And then I love Anastasia. Like, she is just so like go-getter, but she also eventually starts like standing up to people like Aaron. This series, I love the Shatter Me series. This was the first one that I really fell in love with series-wise, and I also Wasn't really expecting to like this as much as I did because it's fantasy, and some fantasy books are just so draining to read because it's so much focus, but this one is really easy to read and the chapters are pretty short. Point is though, this story, I'm sure everybody has heard of it. Juliet basically has a lethal touch, and if she like touches somebody, they die. So she's put in imprisonment at the reestablishment, and they're planning to use her as a weapon and like use her to kill people. And she breaks out and is learning how to like conceal her powers. It's basically like a spin on Frozen. Like in reality, she's like just trying to figure out like how to contain herself. There's all this drama that happens throughout the book. This is another one I would really recommend, but everybody knows it, so I'm not gonna sit too much explain it all because everybody knows. But loved that book. I would love to reread it, but there's so many that I'm like, do I really want to read a 6-book series when I have got other books I should be reading right now? I love Kenji. That's the reason I put this in here. Everybody loves him.
A book you wish you could live in.
So I said misfit when I was like a third of the way in the book, and then I kept reading it and I was like, this seems stressful. But this book I just read the other day, but it's about this guy named RJ whose stepdad is rich and sends him to a prep school where he's living with his stepbrother, and he meets this girl and he really likes her, but she's the headmaster's daughter, so she's off limits. And I liked this book a lot. I gave it 4.5 out of 5 stars. I said I would want to live in this book because I just think the characters are really funny. If you've read it, I wouldn't really want to live in the book drama-wise because there's stuff that happens that's like really intense. Character-wise, like what book would I want to live in and be friends with those characters? It's this or Icebreaker. So
A book you thought you would hate but ended up loving.
Okay, I didn't think I was gonna hate this book. I just thought it was gonna be a lot for me to sit through because it was gonna be a lot of focusing, and that is Song of Achilles. I read this 2 years ago, gave it 2 stars. Everybody knows this book. If you haven't, sorry that you live under a rock. But I gave it 4 stars. It's about these 2 princes. One is like a very like awkward prince, and he ends up, it happens early in the book, he ends up killing somebody, and he's sent away and exiled, and he's sent to the court of, I don't even know how to say any of these names, but basically there's this like well-known king and his prince.
Isn't it Greek? Give it to me.
Yeah, it's all Greek. I can't do it. Like, no, I don't want to because I'm embarrassed. Kat is Greek, and like she would be able to school me right now, and I feel embarrassed, so I don't really want to. It's very much like awkward prince versus the prince that everybody knows, everybody respects, and he's basically going to be king at some point. They end up really good friends, and then of course that starts to tumble and they start to fall in love, but then there's a war, so they have to like test themselves and then sacrifice things for each other. But I really liked it when I read it the second time. I'm glad I gave it a second chance because I knew it was a good book and I'd heard really good things about it, and I knew that I would like it. I just for some reason couldn't focus enough when I was reading it, got really confused. And in books like these and fantasy books, it's so hard to stay focused sometimes, but sometimes if you let yourself slip for like 2 pages, everything gets thrown off and I get way too confused. This book, really, really good. I wrote a better review about it than I'm able to like express right now on my book Instagram. I really like this book a lot more than I was expecting, but it was still really good. I knew I was gonna end up enjoying it if I gave it another chance, so glad I did. 4 stars.
Book that made you cry.
I don't remember if Archer Voice actually made me cry or if I just wanted to cry. I don't have it with me. It's in Nashville. It's like a small town romance, and it's this guy who had this tragedy happen. I'm not gonna say too much, but he doesn't talk to anybody. This girl moves there trying to escape what happened in her town, so she moves to the smaller town and meets him, and there's all this drama and people are like, kind of making fun of him and being like, he doesn't talk to anybody, like he's not gonna talk to you, good luck. And then they end up falling in love and they have to like communicate with each other. It made me want to cry because people were just so mean to him, and she just like defended him all the time. And I feel like it's usually the other way around in books where the guy's like protecting the girl, so I just really like that because it was like protecting him and like being very thoughtful and accommodating to him.
Last one, a book you wish you could read for the first time again.
I put Icebreaker because I love it, but this one, people might get a little mad at me because I know people have their opinions about this author. I do too, but the plot twist in this book, I was sitting right here on this very bed when I read it, and I had to get up and like take 15 laps. I was so shook. Point of story I just was not expecting, and that's November 9th. Like, I understand we have our thoughts about Colleen Hoover. I get it. I read it all. I have my thoughts. Like, we don't need to get into that right now. There's enough talking about it. But the plot twist in this book, I had to get up and take 15 laps. I was so shook. Fallon and Ben are the main characters, and Fallon was in an accident where she was in a house fire and she scarred all over, and her dad basically makes her feel like shit about it and is like, well, you're ugly now because you were in this fire, because he didn't get hurt in it and she did. So he's really a horrible person. But they're at a restaurant and Ben is in the seat behind her, like at the next booth over, and he gets up and walks over and pretends to be her boyfriend to like defend her, which I think is, first of all, really cute and fun. They only end up meeting up with each other every November 9th of every year. They go a year without any communication, and then on November 9th they go and see each other, and that's it. They're together for that day. But then they, of course, like every romance book, fall in love, and then they're like, well, do we break the tradition of like seeing each other on only November 9th because we're together now, or like, should we even bother getting together? Like, how are we gonna do that? And then there's this big plot twist and big conflict that comes up, and it's just crazy. Like, I wish I could read this book for the first time again just for the plot twist. I wish I could read Icebreaker again for like the feelings it gave me. That sounds weird. No, I mean like the sweet, like, oh, I love Nate feelings. But this one, I want to just read the plot twist again for the very first time. But yeah, that's all the books. I don't know how to end this. It was a tag, so I'm like, I don't know. I went this whole video with instruction and now I've got nothing. I made a book Instagram. I said that before. It'll be in the description. I'm gonna put my Goodreads down below too. That's all. Thanks for watching. You should say it and I'll mouth it.
See you when I see ya. No.
See you when I see you. Bye.